We have a trans hate problem, and it's a very prevalent thing. I know it sounds like an obvious statement, but it's very, very real. In fact, Texas proposed a state law that would make identifying as transgender a felony. Yeah, that's happening in the state that I live in, so that's great. What's happening to trans folks is not only a cause for alarm, but a huge reason to protest our government for this awful hatred being perpetrated towards the trans community. It's probably one of the most intentionally divisive topics that's meant to distract us from the slow murder that our legislature is committing towards the general public, even as I'm making this video right now. It's caused debates to happen, hate crimes have been committed, documentaries have been made, and right-wing commentary being churned out of the bigot factory like it's no tomorrow. Trigger warning, flippant use of dead naming, misgendering, transphobia happening, so anyone who is watching and finds that uncomfortable, feel free to click away. I'm specifically talking about one person and his experience, and that person is Elliot Page and his memoir, Page Boy. I think Elliot's story is powerful, painful, and incredibly important. Yet it's being twisted by those who are unwilling to learn, those who spew hatred and justify their ignorance with pseudo-concern or fake pity. One glaring example of this is a video by Amala Ekpunobi. She's a right-wing commentator on YouTube who encapsulates a lot of the common talking points used in anti-trans rhetoric.
Today we're going to be talking about Elliot Page, who of course was formerly Ellen Page. Now, Ellen Page was an American actress. Now, Ellen Page has been living as Elliot Page ever since and has gone through what seems to be a full-blown medical transition, or at least she is in the throes of that currently. Of course, being Ellen Page, then Ellen Page being gay, then Ellen Page actually being Elliot Page. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for if you're a trans activist?
The lack of care and casual use of Elliot's dead name and misgendering him is not only disrespectful, it's pretty intentional.
You know who you are, and please embrace that. I understood my truth. I felt it very strongly, and it was all of these external forces and noises that pushed and pulled and made me sort of lose track of who I was. And so I guess to my younger self, I'd say, that discomfort and that pain you're feeling, that is not yours, that is theirs. And to just keep going on the journey of embracing who you truly are. And that's what's going to lead you to happiness.
Ooh, there's a lot in here, and I gotta say, I could not see a video that feels more devoid of happiness in my personal opinion. I mean, look at the body language, look at the facial expressions, look at what happens at the end of that video when Elliot is supposedly talking about being on a journey and embracing themselves and feeling happiness. There's not an ounce of happiness to be found in that video.
The generalization to say that Elliot is devoid of happiness here is very baffling. It's also a bold thing to say. You can't read his mind, you don't know what he's feeling, and I don't know, you're not really a friend or an acquaintance of his, so how do you know what his mental state is like right now? You're seeing a 30-second clip and then going, he's depressed, this person's confused. When we talk about trauma and abuse, and especially with Elliot's case here, I don't think it's going to be paired with cheerfulness or laughter. The somber look is probably a normal thing to happen.
And it's truly devastating to watch, not only because this is an ill-informed message to trans youth or to gender dysphoric youth who are dealing with hatred of themselves, self-loathing, and incongruence between the mind and body.
Allow me to explain this next prominent talking point used in the anti-trans space. Children who transition will be harmed during the transition process. For trans children who have not yet experienced puberty, the gender transition involves no medical intervention. Unless a child starts puberty early, puberty blockers won't be given until around ages 8 through 12 years for girls and 10 to 14 for boys if requested. Mainly, it's social transitioning that helps the child tremendously. Any kind of reparative treatment or conversion therapy has been highly discredited and denounced by this list of healthcare organizations and many others as causing negative consequences for trans youth and trans people in general. I'm going to list off these organizations right now. The American College of Physicians, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Psychoanalytic Association, the American School Counselor Association, the American Psychological Association, the National Association of School Psychologists, American Medical Association, American Psychiatric Association. Before I get these dumbass comments by people saying that trans ideology is harming children, know that that sentiment is actively harming these kids. It prevents them from seeking the care that they actually desperately need. A lot of these kids are ostracized, thrown out of their homes. Some of them are abused by the parents, neglected by the parents, disowned completely because they identify as trans. And to the parents, they've been infected by some kind of woke mind virus. So these harmful myths not only harm these children, but prevents them from coming out to their parents out of fear.
But it's difficult because you can see, as Elliot or Ellen is speaking, that there is so much pain that this person has endured and so much pain yet to come on this journey towards embracing oneself, which is actually a journey running away from the self.
In this video, you're going to see Amala trying to make the case that the abuse and bullying Elliot endured is the primary reason why he transitioned and identifies as he, him. That's not how it works, and that's not how it has ever worked in the past. I'm sure someone's gonna give me a one-off case of a very rare situation, but yeah, that's not how it works. Children who are transgender know that they're transgender pretty early on. The abuse is given because they're trans, not as a precursor to being trans. Videos like this create giant misconceptions about what it means to be trans. It further perpetuates the stigmatization of an already marginalized group of people. I mean, I'm not trans myself, I'm an ally, but I can at least empathize and understand this is causing real world harm.
If I replayed that video for you now, but I muted it, do you think you'd be able to guess that that is a message of joy, happiness, and encouragement? I mean, look at the body language, look at the facial expressions, look at what happens at the end of that video when Elliot is supposedly talking about being on a journey and embracing themselves and feeling happiness. There's not an ounce of happiness to be found in that video.
Amala does a little parasocial private investigator shit. She's like some kind of body language expert, right?
And if the answer is no, follow that feeling and follow the story of Ellen Page, who has now become Elliot Page, in what is a devastating development for this individual.
I think it's important to distinguish the difference of someone's personal discomfort and what's actually factual. And Amala displays discomfort rather than facts and knowledge. The pity disguised as compassion comes off as patronizing and insulting, as if Elliot's some sort of damaged child. It does make me want to explore and analyze this weird parasocial mass obsession people have about Elliot. Throughout these past few years, there's been a lot of posts on social media on like Facebook and Instagram that have praise for Elliot Page or maybe criticisms of Elliot Page, and the comments are so bizarre to me. And this has been happening since he came out in December of 2020. Every other comment that I see, countless people have dead named him and said things like, poor
wrong pronoun, wrong pronoun,
was so gorgeous. I just don't get why
wrong pronoun
wanted to become a weenie of a boy.
Wrong pronoun
Has serious mental issues. I will call
wrong pronoun dead name.
So beautiful, yet so sad. I remember when this
Wrong pronoun
was pretty and didn't look like a method head. Honestly, the twitching head and gravel voice point towards genuine mental illness. That last one's pretty insane. I don't know when we as a society decided that our baseless observations were construed as absolute fact. As if these people have any authority on what it means to be sane or morally correct, or that having a mental illness makes someone less valued or undeserving of respect. Despite experiencing all this trauma and abuse, as illustrated in Elliot's book Page Boy, it really shows him growing and self-reflecting and self-healing, forming a stronger bond with himself, his true, authentic self. This person is sharing their thoughts and emotions, and they have a whole memoir on this. So why not take his word at face value instead of making these weird generalizations? If you're not a therapist or a healthcare professional that specializes in gender-affirming care especially, your feelings aren't credible. Your inclinations about people you have no relationships with aren't facts. I wanted to talk about the pain aspect that Amala was talking about, the real pain. If you want to talk about a real example of real pain, look at Elliot's memoir.
My weight redistributed in a way that I did not understand. My clothes from the Gap's boys section betraying me. I could not detect myself. I didn't transform into me, the me I knew I was, like the other boys did. I was desperate to wake up from this bad dream, my reflection making me increasingly ill.
This is a common thread in a trans person's journey, their identity. When you grow into the body that you know and feel isn't entirely yours, there's devastating discomfort and confusion. This pain that Elliot was suffering from was due to suppressing his real identity. It's really the opposite of the picture Amala is trying to paint. Elliot understood his truth, and he might not have had the words for it, but he knew what he felt inside. It was those around him that ignored it and rejected it. Transitioning allowed Elliot to align with his truth, his real self.
There is a lot of hatred, pushback, criticism for Elliot Page that is shared all over the internet, and it's totally understandable as somebody who is a grown woman encouraging young people to gender transition. There's a lot of harm in that message, and criticism is most definitely deserved.
The blatant disrespect is sending me. It is not that hard to gender somebody correctly. Elliot wouldn't go up to Amala and just start misgendering her or calling her Armando. Anyway, this brings me to my next topic. The track record and discomfort shown in Elliot's memoir is more than enough to prove that he's always known that he's a man.
I would stare at the cis boys on set. How is that not me? I move like them. I play like them. A gnawing feeling from toddlerhood stored in the spine, like shingles striking at a moment's notice, spreading across my body, nerves exposed. The reaction to the girl I met in the mirror in an Old Navy in an industrial park on the outskirts of Richmond, Virginia was what I'd wished for. But my response to that attention was not. It only heightened the sting, stretching and contaminating the wound, more of its grotesqueness on display.
Now, Paige states that this bullying that she suffered as a kid was because of her queerness. Quote, he was tormented in school, called homophobic slurs, and shoved in the boys' bathroom.
As someone who tries to come off as emotionally intelligent, she seems pretty ignorant to keep misgendering a person, especially a person that they don't know. You're flip-flopping, so you clearly understand, but you're just not respecting. And that's why I have a problem with this video. I'm ignorant about this topic, but I don't care to change or to learn. Therefore, I'm gonna continually disrespect a person I don't even know.
This article also details that when Ellen Page was struggling with her sexuality and wanting to come out as gay, she was encouraged by Hollywood executives to stay in the closet because she was working in roles like Juno, which of course had a bend towards femininity and straightness, heterosexuality. So she was dealing with this plus an onslaught of just constant sexualization and objectification. What do you expect?
Say you were in Elliot's shoes. You know, you've endured the abuse from family members, people in your life, Hollywood execs, camera crew, stuff like that. And someone tells you, well, sorry, what'd you expect? This is Hollywood. I know it's like a throwaway line of Amala's. The fact that she said it at all kills me. And then there were also people in her comments that were saying, it frustrates me so much when celebrities talk about Hollywood forcing them to do things and leave off in order to be rich and famous. It's mentalities like this that prevent people from speaking up about abuse. And this is in regards to any kind of abuse. This is why some people commit suicide. They're shamed for talking about these things, for talking about any kind of sexual abuse or physical violence. When somebody like is able to talk about it in an open way, and then the response from a lot of people is, yeah, but you're in Hollywood, so why are you complaining? Like, what are you talking about?
Being closeted while learning roller derby has a special type of irony to it, given how intertwined queerness is with the sport. But throwing myself into learning this new skill still opened up a much-needed pocket of joy in my life at the time.
I'm using this quote to illustrate my point that Elliot couldn't be his true self because of people like Amala. Whether you believe it or not, Amala's video adds to the liberation and alienation of trans people.
You're talking about a young woman who, from a very young age, displayed maybe masculinized traits, brought those masculinized traits to school, was bullied for it, was called homophobic slurs, was thrown in the boys' bathroom. Clearly, there's some messaging underlying these different forms of bullying. You're a girl who acts like a boy, and therefore you deserve to be bullied. For a young child, the only message that they're going to be able to deduce from those actions is that a girl should not be acting like a boy, and something is wrong with her.
I find it extremely fascinating that Amala almost has the answer and a conclusion, but she's unwilling to learn about what it really means to be trans. She makes vast assumptions based on no real evidence, only really on her feelings, saying that, of course, Elliot transitioned, it's the next logical thing to do. Amala, you do know that Elliot's his own person, right? He's a grown adult that has gone through therapy, that has gone through self-reflection throughout decades. He's a 38-year-old man. He just turned 38 this February. I hope you understand that. If Amala actually read this book, she wouldn't be making these vast generalizations based on no evidence. But she seems to think that her feelings and a lack of evidence is bolstering her crumbling argument.
From there, you grow into a woman's body and you are thrust into Hollywood, where you are now being sexualized and objectified for the femininity. The very same femininity that you couldn't show as a young person in school and were bullied for not showing. So when you are simply just being a kid, you are brought down by the other kids around you for, I don't know, existing in the way you exist. You grow into not even a woman's body, mind you, a minor woman's body, and you are consistently sexualized while also being told to lean into that femininity and out of your queerness or lesbianism. So not only do you feel a sense of a lack of ownership when it comes to who you actually are and being able to express yourself, but this female body that you were given, you were born into, is constantly being exploited by those around you. And those around you are adults and executives, people of power, people who exist within a system, and a system that you are working in as well.
She's not even trying to educate herself. Trans people aren't created from trauma. They're born trans. They're not made to be trans. Elliot received abuse because he expressed himself differently. But this woman sits here, makes assumptions about somebody she doesn't even fucking know, and does so in a way that's so disrespectful and not even at all open-minded.
I'd always been told I was gay, made fun of for being a dyke. I felt more comfortable in environments with queer women, but inherently something in me knew that I was transgender. Something I'd always known, but didn't have the words for, wouldn't permit myself to embrace. I was never a girl. I'll never be a woman. What am I gonna do? I used to say, have always said.
You come out for the Human Rights Campaign, and you are met with thunderous applause from everybody in the room. This, of course, is going to function as a momentary high of all highs. You feel as though you've grasped a bit of who you actually are, a bit of yourself. You've also given a massive you to every single kid who bullied you for being masculine in school, to every executive who tried to get in your pants at a dinner when you were 16, to an actor who gave an inebriated speech at you about how you're not actually gay.
To be frank, it is hard to imagine a relationship again. Dennis and Linda support those with massive platforms who have attacked and ridiculed me on a global scale. Regardless of everything before, it's painful to think that someone who parented you could support those who deny your very existence.
This quote is in reference to Elliot's parents, his father and his stepmother. If you want to talk about support, let's talk about the support that they give to people that deny his existence or wish violence or harm upon Elliot. Amala's video implies that Elliot gave this speech for accolades and praise. And you know what? I think Elliot deserves that because he's going to receive a lot of hatred. And he has received a lot of hatred for coming out in 2014, for coming out as trans in 2020. He will receive a lot of hate, unfortunately, for the rest of his life from people like Amala. His parents couldn't handle his real, authentic self and support people like Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist known for spewing hatred towards marginalized groups of people.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
And while that may work for a while, all of that is still brewing inside. All of that pain, all of that despair is still sitting there, and you're never going to be fully satisfied with yourself because you're seeking the wrong medication for the illness that you're dealing with.
Amala approaches Elliot's situation with a lot of bad faith. She acts like Elliot hasn't had any introspection, or that he hasn't had therapy, or that he hasn't found reasons for why he feels the way that he does. It's very self-evident what occurred with Elliot. He is trans, and he was mistreated for being trans, amongst other things that have nothing to do with being trans. But this book shows an individual who has gone through a lot and has learned a lot. I can't begin to explain the lack of nuance or care that Amala has, that she can just make a video, a little throwaway video for monetization that spews utter nonsense and lies. And she's not the worst offender of this, obviously. There's so many other content creators out there that do the same thing, worse things, but it's almost like she's pushing a certain agenda and ignoring any kind of evidence that's laid out before her.
So then coming out as gay becomes coming out as trans, and this achieves even more for a traumatized person. You get to discard the body that you feel has been exploited your entire life. You get to assume a new identity and run from who you are and all of those past experiences, because Ellen is no longer Ellen. Ellen is a dead name. That person is died, that person is gone. I am now Elliot.
I think this further speaks to the fact that people like Amala really don't understand this topic, or they don't want to understand this topic. They're choosing not to. They're using this language, and she's using this language, but they're not using the terms correctly. She's using the terms to fit a false narrative. In regards to their dead name, trans people don't kill their old self. A trans person is finally able to show their true selves by getting rid of their old name and presenting to the world as how they've always felt.
Imagine the most uncomfortable, mortifying thing you could wear. You squirm in your skin. It's tight. You want to peel it from your body, tear it off, but you can't, day in and day out. And if people are to learn what is underneath, who you are without that pain, the shame would come flooding out, too much to hold. The voice was right. You deserve the humiliation. You are an abomination. You are too emotional. You're not real. Do you think you're trans? Star asked me, locking eyes. Yes? Well, maybe. I think so.
This is a very pivotal moment in Elliot's memoir, and I think in his life. So close to feeling like his true self, but there's still a ways to go. I feel like if you can't resonate with that in some way, you just might not have empathy for people. I don't know. A lot of this is based on having that general empathy, but instead transphobic people are operating off of feelings of discomfort and a lack of understanding. And it's very disheartening, bordering on frustrating. I'm trying to make this video to educate a little bit and to show that cis people can learn, man. Telling people that you have to behave a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way, it's too much. It really is. I can only empathize and hear the stories of trans people. I will never fully experience what they've gone through. At least I can learn and be an ally and support trans people for all of the plight that they go through. And I'm not trying to sound like a staunch white knight defender, you know. I just see the misguided hatred towards a group of people that are just trying to fucking live.
Society did beat this individual down for many different reasons, but not because they're trans, not because they're a girl born into a boy's body, but because Ellen Page happened to be in the right place at the right time to receive this behavior from the wrong people. And this is all just theory, of course. I'm just trying to put puzzle pieces together.
If you can't tell anybody why you've come to these conclusions, how can anyone trust what you have to say? What makes you the authority? The way Amala speaks can be pretty eloquent and it might sound educated, but if you really break down her talking points, you can really see very quickly that her ideas and her opinions are unfounded. There's no evidence, there's only a feeling of discomfort that she conveys. And of course, a person who isn't educated on the topic is going to eat that up. They're gonna take it at face value. People like this are not medical professionals. They're not friends of Elliot's. They're not even acquaintances. They don't even read the book. I've done this several times, I know. But how can you begin to talk about a person? Make these accusations, is what I'm gonna call them. Not do your research and just spew bullshit out of your mouth. This person's made a career out of this, and other people do the same thing. And that's why this video is being made, because it's calling out the crap people are saying, the falsehoods that people are saying. They let this type of rhetoric drive their conclusions. And it drives me up the fucking wall.
And it seems as though, as a society, we can all understand this when it's packaged the right way. When you see a child star like Amanda Bynes or Demi Lovato or Drew Barrymore go on this trajectory towards a crash out due to all the abuse and the exploitation that they faced as a kid and then leading into their adulthood, we all seem to understand what went wrong. But when you switch out, I don't know, drug addiction and DUIs and this party lifestyle for literally cutting off your breast, changing your anatomy, undergoing hormone replacement therapy, changing your voice, changing everything about the physical nature of your body, we seem to lack understanding. That's one guiding themselves towards who they truly are. When instead of heroin and cocaine, it's a testosterone shot, we all suddenly become blind.
I don't know about you all, but man, do I hear disdain bordering on disgust here. And that just might be me. It just seems like there's hatred in her voice. I really do want to go through the steps of what it means to transition, because I think people think it just happens on a whim, and that getting any kind of surgery, it happens on a whim, which, by the way, people who transition, a good chunk of them might not want to transition medically. They just transition socially or however other means. Everyone's case is different. Everyone's situation is different. Common steps for transitioning. There's social transitioning, when someone changes their gender expression. This is coming out to loved ones and friends, asking for preferred pronouns, changing their hairstyle, possibly choosing a new name. Mind you, if a parent accepts their child for who they are as being trans, they will receive gender therapy and general therapy for overall wellness checks, if they care about them. There's medical transitioning. Some trans people will start receiving gender affirming care, which involves consulting with affirming healthcare providers, hormone treatment, and surgery of varying kinds. And then there's legal transitioning, changing your legal documents like driver's license and birth certificate information, which, to be honest, it seems like it's becoming less of an option. Look at the case with actress and model Hunter Schafer.
Male. And I'm not making this post to fearmonger or to create like drama or receive consolation. I don't need it, but I do think it's worth posting to sort of note the reality of the situation and that it is actually happening.
If Amala did any kind of research, 3 seconds of it, she wouldn't be saying these things. Or maybe she would, because she has a certain agenda she has to push, obviously. But if she was someone who wasn't acting in bad faith, she'd be like, oh, that makes sense.
All this to say, I hope that Elliot Page or Ellen Page, I'm sure you guys are gonna go off in the comments about the pronouns and the name use, I don't care.
This is probably the most self-evident part of the video to me. She doesn't care about Elliot's dignity, identity, or his story. She, like many others, default to invalidation, because showing respect, understanding, or empathy is clearly too much for them. And of course, doesn't confirm their biases. This performative pitying and superficial, misguided compassion comes across as disingenuous and disgusting. People like Amala don't want to change their viewpoints. They don't even want to try to understand what it means to be trans. These right-wing commentators, these right-wing anti-trans bigots see transness as a mental disorder, as a sickness. She can deny trans people all day long and deny their existence and deny the facts, but the reality is and always will be there. Trans people have been here since the dawn of man. They're here now, and they're going to be here in the future.
I hope this individual gets to experience the happiness that they are so evidently longing for. But on the way there, if they could please stop encouraging other young kids who feel the same to go down this path, I would deeply appreciate that. I have the utmost sympathy for everything that Ellen Page has gone through that led her to become Elliot Page. But to stand as Elliot Page and encourage other young people, young children, to do the same is harmful, and we all know it is.
Jump scare. I do think it's important to say this, and I've said this in different ways, but people deserve to present themselves however they feel. Y'all, our society is fracturing right now, and life is too short to not live the life that you want to live and present yourself the way you want to present. We look at like leftist, left-leaning politics and social change and ideas. A lot of the framework is based on empathy. And sometimes people get lost in the sauce, and there's good and bad people on either side, but as a whole, we want acceptance of people. The increasing hatred for people who live outside the social norm will further crumble any kind of social progression, any kind of empathy or advancement or change we want as a society. If Amala has any children in the future and they identify as trans, or they come out to her, I hope she extends grace, empathy, patience, and respect to them that they'll need to navigate this shit life. And that goes for any anti-trans advocate. I hope this video has helped in some way. I've been wanting to make something like this for a very long time. I wanted to show that I am an ally, but my understanding can only go so far. I don't live the trans experience. I do urge you to follow trans content creators, to read trans literature and hear people who experience this on the daily. I really wanted to show my support and care and respect that I have for the trans community. I hope you can see that. If I misspoke on this topic, or there are any other conversations that should be brought up, or any kind of terms that I said that might have been inaccurate, please have civil discourse in the comments. But let's face it, we know how the internet works, and there might be some assholes in there, so just be aware of that. Let me know your thoughts on this video, and thank you for watching if you've made it this far. Thanks.